Hello, in this video we're going to create material layers, have a digital asset and open it already in Unreal to have a first look at the terrain. So here back in Houdini, this is where I left off previously. So I have a base landscape for my desert scene. And now I want to continue by creating a mask. So you can already here decide to make a frame around this or have multiple frames if you want to categorize each different part. And we're going to start here by a first mask, and we're going to use a mask by feature. So I want to create multiple masks that will then guide the material in Unreal. So here, let's go and I'm going to try my occlusion. So mask by occlusion. So this already gives something interesting, but not really what I'm looking for. I might also invert the mask, and now you can barely see it. And we're going to adjust the ramping value here. So let me play around with this. You can see that this gives a better value, maybe even more. And I think that's pretty good. So it gives us a really nice mask here to start with. Then we can also use another mask by feature, and we can copy paste it. And instead of using the occlusion, maybe we are going to use the height. So maybe we don't want the current mask to be everywhere. So calculate the range, and let's play around here with some of the values, like this maybe smooth it out in the parameter. And then we can, for example, subtract this from our already existing mask. So the higher parts are not included in this mask. So we can play around with this. Maybe you can even make this smoother, like so. And what we're then going to do is we're going to do a copy layer. So copy layer. And with this node, we are currently having mask, and we want to save this mask out in a new layer called layer 01. So you can give them other names. I'm most of the time just calling them layer 01 and then 02, 03 and so on. After that, what we can do is we can, for example, use a remap. And we basically are going to invert the mask. So we're going to use here layer to remap the mask. And we can then basically here invert the range. Something interesting here as well is we can also use the combine height field. So this is a lab node. And this allows us to, for example, subtract already existing layers from a current layer. So we can here, for example, use, maybe let's try out the flow layer. And then we subtract here the flow that we calculated somewhere previously here. So that might be interesting if you want to have that. And you can also subtract layer 1. But we already basically did that before, so it shouldn't be that big of a difference. Also, a cool trick to get some cool masks is to use a erode node. So if you place down the erode node, it will erode the terrain, but a sand desert is not really being eroded that much. I'm also going to disable visualize here for a moment. So here in the erode node, I'm going to freeze frame at 10, and I'm going to just click reset. And then we have something that looks like this. So we have these lines there. Then we could use this, for example, here in our mask. So we can say like this. We can subtract the debris. And then we have these really interesting masks. If you're looking for this type of detail, the erode node is really useful for this. Now here at the moment, since I'm building this desert scene, the erode node might not be exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm just gonna remove that for now. So back here at when I inverted my mask, I'm gonna copy paste my copy layer, and this will be my layer 2. Then we can, if you want to create more masks and layers, so we can use the mask by feature again. And in here, we're gonna use occlusion again. Play around here with the ramp, like maybe so. Or you can always like invert this again if you want to. Maybe we can play around with it more. Like we can, for example, really extract these bigger areas here. Then you can always keep stacking them by copying them here. Maybe we can calculate something like curvature maybe, and compute range. And let's play around here with this. And let's say we want to subtract this from the current mask, and then we have a mask like this. So this looks a bit more interesting. Then again, if you want to save this out, I'm going to use a copy layer. And I'm going to save this out to layer 3. Then clear out the mask, because we don't need that anymore. I'm just going to clear it out. And this is basically here then my basic mask, so I'm going to put frame around that. So here I generate my 3 base masks. Now further, most of the time I would like to visualize this, so we're going to use the quick shade node, so height field of quick shading, and plug that in over here. And we're going to use here texture 1, 2, and 3. So we can control here with a mask what I'm saying. So here layer 1, then 2, and then texture 3, layer 3. Now we still don't visually see this, and that is because we're going to either add a texture or we're going to add a color. So in this case, I'm just going to add color, and we can already give this some desert-like colors. Like we can give it something, maybe something like this will work. Then we're going to go to texture 2, enable color, and assign a color here as well. Maybe this can be darker. And then here texture 3, again, enable color. And we can still play around with that as well. And have something like this. So notice that I maybe want to keep this more subtle. So layer 3, let's go back here at that AO value, and we can maybe bring that back. So something like this. So here we can just have like a first look of how this would go. And some areas are really well, some areas could have been better. Maybe I don't want this height. I'm not such a fan of this hard transition over here. So maybe for now, let's leave it like that. And I can always later come back anyway. Now here also the output. I'm gonna here click on the transformation icon, or you can hold your middle mouse button. And what we can see on the output is we have a lot of different layers on my terrain. So I have a height, which is of course the default. We have the flow, we have masks, and we have our layer 1, 2, and 3. Now often what I would do is before I bring this in game engine is I would blast away all the layers that I don't need. So in here, I'm going to just select what I would like to have as output. So I want to have my height, my layer 1, 2, and 3, and then basically invert it. So these are the main layers I would like to save out, and all the other ones I don't mind not having them. So once we have this, I'm going to create digital assets. So select everything. I'm going to press here subnetwork or Shift C. Now I have this subnetwork, right click on it, create digital asset, or we also have now create a versioned digital asset. So versioned digital asset means that we can always later on create multiple versions or iterations on the asset. So that might be useful if you're planning to have a lot of different versions and updates on that tool. So let's do that here as well. So you can give this a namespace, a branch, and we can just give it here a name. So desert terrain. I'm going to give that here also the same name, and I'm going to press continue. Then we also have the save path, so we can actually choose a bit more where we want to save. So under the default location, in a certain user path, or in the current hip. So this will decide where the HDA digital asset is being stored. So in this case, I just want to use my default location, which is under documents. So great. And now here I have my desert terrain. So before I actually bring this in game engine, one more thing I like to do here is also use the output here. So I'm always outputting this final result. And we're gonna use a Unreal material. So here, Unreal material, and the only thing we need to do here is we need to give this the path or location to where my material is stored. So to get my material, I'm gonna go to Unreal Engine, I'm gonna find my terrain material. So in this case, I'm gonna use here my terrain material instance. I'm gonna right click, copy the reference, and in the material, we're gonna paste down the path so that is set. Before I bring this into Game Engine, I also made some more tweaks. So I changed actually some parameters here of that mask. So I just tweaked some of the ramps we have there. So I tweaked, for example, here the AO ramp and some other ramps here as well, just to get something like this, a bit more interesting. And also something important that I forgot is we need to set an overall resolution of this terrain. So what I would often do is here, after I, for example, I'm done with my terrain, I can resample this into my final resolution, or I can do this earlier if you need to do some specific detailing. So what we can do is we can enable here again the exact resolution, and we are going to use the axis now. So this will be the resolution. Depends on what you want to use. If you want to have a really high detailed terrain and you also want to use some tessellation, then of course you want to set this to a quite height value. But in this case, I'm just going to set it to 505. So that means that it's not super detailed, but it's still good enough. So then let's save out the asset. So save test terrain. And I'm going to bring this into Game Engine. So notice that I've not yet created any parameters, so I just wanted to make sure everything works in Game Engine before creating more things. So here I have a basic scene, and I'm going to drag and drop my digital assets on my HTA in the scene. Also note that we have a new Houdini engine menu, so if you're not connected yet, make sure you are creating a session so you can open our tools. Now drag and drop this in here, and after a moment you will see the terrain. And as you can see, here is my terrain. So we have this exact same result that I had in Houdini, now in Unreal. So this starts to look more like a desert now. So you can see that this is already quite huge. Now with the scene generated, we can press play here. And we can then play the level and also have a better feeling of the scale. Also, some of this procedural grass you will see now and then is also coming from a material. Now furthermore, let's also look at the material variation that we made with the layering system. And we can already see here that I have some of these rocks here, and then I have my normal sand here. So I have a system that blends that. But the base system comes from Houdini. So let's switch here to the landscape. Then I have my landscape menu here on the side, and when I switch to paint mode, we will see layer 1, 2, and 3. So these values, or these layers, come from Houdini. So I converted my mask into layer 1, 2, and 3, so we have the exact same layers here. So we can still paint on that, so if I feel like this is not really what I want, so I can still overwrite it by just painting it like so. Or if I want to have the other one, the other sand, I can just start painting on top of that. Or if I would like to see way more stones, like so, we can still manually tweak it. So we can procedurally generate the base setup, and then we can override it still with like the brushes that we have here. So now let's switch to normal mode and look at the material. This is the material that I used for the terrain. If you would be more new to this material creation for terrains and so on, I can recommend you more checking out other YouTube videos on how to create this. I'm just going to go over the concepts and the base nodes that you will need. Now the first node that is really important here is the layer blend. And the layer blend will be using the layer names that we made in Houdini. So layer 1, 2, and 3 of course. So they will have the same here as well. So we're going to use this to blend different materials together. So this is for my base color. This will here be my normals. I also do boost here afterwards. And this is then for my roughness. So these are the three maps that I want to create. So if I quickly look here, I have my three base textures. So I have this fine sand, a bit more rough sand, and the sand with stones. Then I have also two variation in scale. So these are just scaled up, and these are like scaled down. So we have some nice scaling variation in the distance. And after that, we have the color. I also do some like post-process, little post-process, like hue shifting, saturation, adding some more lightness in there. And I basically then repeat the same for the other map. So this is then the roughness. So I get the roughness, do some little tweaks there. And same for the normals. I do the normals. You can boost the normals if you want to. And then the layer blend here will bring this all together. So this will nicely blend between these different textures. Furthermore, I also have here a grass output. So this will require a landscape grass type file. So you can just create that in your content browser. And in here, I'm then using the world aligned blend and exposed some parameters. And this is then controlling where grass can grow. So when the value is 1, grass will grow. When the value is 0, it won't grow. So also have this big toggle to switch this on or off in case I don't want to see the grass, for example. So this is how you can automate some parts of, for example, grass placement on a terrain. Now, last thing I wanted to do is actually create some parameters here. So we're going to go here to Assets and open our desert here. So in here, I'm going to go to Parameters. I'm going to take this on the side, and I'm going to expose different values. So the main thing already here at the top is actually here our size. So I'm going to drag that in here, and this is then height feet size. So I'm going to rename this to terrain size. And I'm going to press apply. And when you press apply, this will appear green, so it means that it's linked. And I'm going to copy paste this in the Y, because I'm just going to generate square terrains always. So you can change this, but in this case, I like to just have one main big slider for the size. Also here, since I'm working with pretty high values, like 1000, I also want to change the range from, let's say, 100 to maybe 3000 if you want to go really high or higher. Now furthermore, I'm going to grab here also the quality, so resolution. And I might group these together. So these are the main, I'm just going to call this main settings. And I'm going to create another folder here for then the shapes and noises. So I'm just going to call this noises of the terrain. So now I'm going to go here to the pattern, and I might here then here expose the offset here, so I can change this. So I'm going to grab one of them values here. You can then just call this seed, for example, and press apply. And we're probably going to multiply this by a bigger value. So maybe let's say by 100. And I'm going to copy paste this in here and here. I'm also going to go here to that other pattern node, and I'm going to do the same thing, copy pasting that value in here. What you can do here as well is then you can change this from multiplying this by 100, by 200, or other value. Now again, you can expose as much parameters as you want to. I'm just going to keep it simple, and I also want to control here the dunes. So let's grab here this one, and I'm going to basically do the same. In here, I would like to have, for example, here this offset as well. So let's grab this. I'm going to call this dunes offset. And again, I'm going to copy paste this to the other ones here as well. Also, again, I'm going to check the range. So let's set this to 2000. And also here, the seed value, let's go from 0 to 100. We also might want to control the scaling mask here of where the dunes are. So you can also have an offset here. So dune variation. And I'm also going to go from 0 to 1000 maybe. And let's paste that over here. What can also be interesting is to maybe expose some of these remapping. So like I mentioned, like if you think these tunes are too high, we can then, for example, say set this to 30, and then we have them way softer, or 10, but that's maybe too much. We can then expose this value to control it. So let's grab it here and tune intensity. And press apply and accept it. So let's try out some of these values. So let's say I want to make my terrain bigger, so let's say 1500. And now I have this bigger, so it's pretty cool. Let's say I want to have it smaller, so 500. Now I have a smaller terrain there. Also the resolution, let's say we want to have it higher. And you can see we're already getting way more detail in these masks, which is pretty cool. But again, it's up to you which resolution. So in this case, I took something quite low just to work with. It also works faster, of course. Now let's play around here with the seed. So let's do that. So you can already see it gives us some cool variation here without actually changing the dune part here. So it's also nice that we have them separated so we can control both of them. Then let's have here the offset. Can do something like that. And then also have the variation. So this was the mask. And then the intensity. So if we want to, I can also see that I forgot to set the range. So let's go back to the menu. And maybe let's go from 0 to, maybe let's set this to 10 to 60. That would be better. So 10 is already pretty low. So let's try the asset in game now. So in here, we're gonna rebuild the asset. So here I have done my parameters. So I have the main settings and I have my noises. So to make this calculate fast, I'm gonna go with a small terrain. So let's say 300. So we have this really small piece of the terrain, and let's go to the noises. So we can have a seed here, and you can see that works pretty fast. We can also then offset some of the tunes here, add some variation, lower the intensity. You can overall see that we are now working quite quickly with this tool. And you can put it maybe back to 1000. So this took a few more seconds because it's a way bigger terrain. And again, we can just press play. And I have my terrain. So I can walk around again. So we have this big full landscape. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. So this video we finished off the base terrain, brought it in real, and in next videos we're gonna add some more props, gather around interesting models, and also use BGG and more features to bring this to a final project.